Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning back in again. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation and recording for the next part of the lesson that talks about the effects of public opinion. Remember that your task for this part of the lesson is to listen to the recording or read the source and answer the comprehension questions in multiple choice or true-false form. Remember, our learning objectives for today are as follows. By the end of this section, you'll be able to explain the circumstances that lead to public opinion affecting policy, compare the effects of public opinion on government branches and figures, and identify situations that cause conflicts in public opinion. Let's go ahead and get started. Public opinion polling is prevalent outside election season. Are politicians and leaders listening to these polls, or is there some other reason for them? Some believe the increased collection of public opinion is due to growing support of delegate representation. The theory of delegate representation assumes the politician is in office to voice of the people. But if voters want the legislator to vote for legalizing marijuana, for example, the legislator should vote to legalize marijuana. Legislators or candidates who believe in delegate representation may poll the public before an important vote comes up for the debate in order to learn what the public desires them to do. But others believe polling has increased because of politicians, like the president, operate in permanent campaign mode. To continue contributing money, supporters must remain happy and convinced that the politician is listening to them. So even if the elected official does not act in a manner consistent with the polls, he or she can mollify everyone by explaining the reasons behind the vote. Regardless of why polls are taken, studies have not clearly shown whether the branches of government consistently act on them. Some branches appear to pay closer attention to public opinion than other branches, but events like time periods and politics may change the way an individual or branch of government ultimately reacts. Public opinion and elections. So elections are the events on which public opinion polls have the greatest measured effect. Public opinion polls do more than show how we feel on issues or project who might win an election. The media use public opinion polls to decide which candidates are ahead of others and therefore of interest to voters and worthy of interview. From the moment, for example, President Obama was inaugurated for a second term, speculation began about who would run in 2016. Within a year, potential candidates were being ranked and compared by a number of newspapers. The speculation included favorability polls on Hillary Clinton, which measured how positively voters felt about her as a candidate. The media deemed these polls important because they showed Clinton as a frontrunner for the Democrats in the next election. During presidential primary season, we see examples of the bandwagon effect, in which the media pays more attention to candidates who poll well during the fall and the first few primaries. Bill Clinton, for example, was nicknamed the comeback kid in 1992 after he placed second in the New Hampshire primary despite accusations of adultery with Jennifer Flowers. The media's attention on Clinton gave him the momentum to make it through the rest of the primary season, ultimately winning the Democratic nomination and the presidency. So polling is also at the heart of the horse race coverage, in which, just like an announcer at a racetrack, the media calls out every candidate's move throughout the presidential campaign. Horse race coverage can be neutral, positive, or negative, depending upon what polls or facts are covered. So during the 2012 presidential election, the Pew Research Center found that both Mitt Romney and President Obama received more negative than positive horse race coverage, with Romney's growing more negative as he fell in the polls. Horse race coverage is often criticized for its lack of depth. The stories skip over the candidates' issue positions, voting histories, and other facts that would help voters make an informed decision. Yet horse race coverage is popular because the public is always interested in who will win, and it often makes up a third or more of the news stories about an election. Exit polls taken the day of the election are the last election polls conducted by the media. Announced results of these surveys can deter voters from going to the polls if they believe the election has already been decided. Next section down here, public opinion polls affect how much money candidates receive in campaign donations. Donors assume public opinion polls are accurate enough to determine who the top 2 or 3 primary candidates will be, and they give the money to those who do well. Candidates who poll at the bottom will have a hard time collecting donations, increasing the odds, and they will continue to do poorly. This was apparent in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election. Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and Martin O'Malley each campaigned in the hope of becoming the Democratic presidential nominee. But in June 2015, 75% of Democrats likely to vote in their state primaries said they would vote for Clinton, while 15% of those polled said they would vote for Sanders, and only 2% they would vote for O'Malley. During the same time period, Clinton raised $47 million in campaign donations, Sanders raised $15 million, and O'Malley raised $2 million. By September 2015, 23% of likely Democrat voters said they would vote for Sanders, and this summer fundraising total increased accordingly. Presidents running for re-election must also perform well in public opinion polls, and being in office may not provide an automatic advantage. You see, Americans often think about both the future and the past when they decide on what candidate to support. They have 3 years of the past information about the sitting president, so they can better predict what will happen if the incumbent is reelected. That makes it difficult for the president to mislead the electorate. Voters also want a future that is prosperous. Not only should the economy look good, but citizens want to know that they will do well in that economy too. For this reason, daily public approval polls sometimes act as both a referendum of the president and a predictor of success. And here's the last section down here: public opinion in government. The relationship between public opinion polls and government action is murkier than between polls and elections. Like the news media and campaign staffers, members of 3 branches of government are aware of public opinion, but do politicians use public opinion polls to guide their decisions and actions? The short answer is sometimes. The public is not perfectly informed about politics, so politicians realize public opinion may not always be the right choice. Yet many political studies, from the American Voter in the 1920s to the American Voter Revisited in the 2000s, have found that voters behave rationally despite having limited information. Individual citizens do not take the time to become fully informed about all aspects of politics, yet their collective behavior and the opinions they hold as a group make sense. They appear to be informed just enough, using preference like the political ideology and party membership to make decisions and hold politicians accountable during an election year. Overall, the collective public opinion of a country changes over time, even if party membership or ideology does not change dramatically. As James Stimmon's prominent study found, the public's mood or collective opinion can become more or less liberal from decade to decade, while the initial study of public mood revealed the economy has a profound effect on the American opinion. Further studies have gone beyond to determine whether the public opinion and its relative liberalness in turn affect politicians and institutions. This idea does not argue that opinion never affects policy directly, rather than collective opinion also affects the politicians' decisions on policy. Individually, of course, politicians cannot predict what will happen in the future or will oppose them in the next few elections. They can look to see what the public is in agreement as a body. If public mood changes, the politicians may change positions to match the public mood. The more savvy politicians look carefully to recognize when shifts occur. When the public is more or less liberal, the politicians may make slight adjustments to their behavior to match. Politicians who frequently seek to win office, like House members, will pay attention to the long and short-term changes in opinion. By doing this, they will be less likely to lose on election day. Presidents and justices, on the other hand, present a more complex picture. And here you go. So public opinion of a president is different from public opinion of Congress. Congress is an institution of 535 members, and opinion polls look at both the institution and its individual members. The president is both the person and the head of an institution. The media pays close attention to any president's actions, and the public is generally well informed and aware of the office and its current administration and occupant. Perhaps this is why public opinion has an inconsistent effect on the president's decisions. As early as FDR's administration in the 1930s, presidents have regularly polled the public, and since Richard Nixon's term, they have admitted to using polling as a part of the decision-making process. Presidential responsiveness to the public opinion has been measured in a number of ways, though, each of which tells us something about the effect of opinion. One study examined whether presidents responded to public opinion by determining how often they wrote amicus briefs, and they asked the courts to affirm or reverse cases. It found that the public's liberal or non-liberal mood had an effect, causing presidents to pursue and file briefs in different cases. But another author found that the public's level of liberalness is ignored when conservative presidents like Reagan or Bush are elected and try to lead. In one example, our 5 most recent presidents' moods varied from liberal to non-liberal, while public sentiment stayed consistently liberal. While the public supported liberal approaches to policy, presidential action varied from liberal to non-liberal. Overall, it appears that presidents try to move public opinion towards personal positions rather than moving themselves towards the public's opinion. So if presidents have enough public support, they use their level of public approval indirectly as a way to get their agenda passed. Immediately following Inauguration Day, for example, the president enjoys the highest level of public support for implementing campaign promises. This is especially true if a president has a mandate, which is more than half the popular vote. Barack Obama's recent 2008 victory was a mandate with 52.9% of the popular vote and 67.8% of the Electoral College vote. When presidents have high approval, they are likely to act quickly and try to accomplish personal policy goals. They can use their position and power to focus media attention on an issue, and this is sometimes referred to as the bully pulpit approach. The term bully pulpit was coined by President Teddy Roosevelt, who believed the presidency commanded the attention of the media and could be used to appeal directly to the people. Roosevelt used his position to convince voters to pressure Congress to pass laws. Increasing partisanship has made it more difficult for presidents to use their power to get their own preferred issues through Congress, however, especially when the president's party is the minority in Congress. For this reason, modern presidents may find more success in using their popularity and to increase media and social media attention on an issue. Even if a president is not the reason for congressional action, he or she can cause the attention that leads to change. Presidents may also use their popularity to ask people to act. In October 2015, following the shooting at Umpqua Community College in Oregon, President Obama gave a short speech from the West Wing of the White House. After offering his condolences and prayers to the community, he remarked that prayers and condolences were no longer enough, and he called on citizens to push Congress for a change in gun control laws. President Obama had proposed gun control reform following the 2012 shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut, but it did not pass Congress. This time, the president asked citizens to use gun control as a voting issue and push to reform via the ballot box. In some instances, presidents may appear to directly consider public opinion before acting or making decisions. In 2013, President Obama announced that it was considering a military strike on Syria in reaction to the Syrian government's illegal use of sarin gas on its own citizens. Despite agreeing on this chemical attack on Damascus suburbs was a war crime, the public was against U.S. involvement. 48% of respondents said that they opposed airstrikes, and only 29% were in favor. Democrats were especially opposed to military intervention. So President Obama changed his mind, ultimately allowed Russian President Vladimir Putin to negotiate Syria's surrender of its chemical weapons. However, further examples show that presidents do not consistently listen to public opinion. After taking office in 2009, President Obama did not order the closing of Guantanamo Bay Prison, and even though his proposal to do so had so garnered support during the 2008 election, President Bush, despite growing public disapproval in the war in Iraq, did not end military action in 2006. And President Clinton, whose White House pollsters were infamous for polling on everything, sometimes ignored the public if circumstances warranted. So, in 1995, despite public opposition, Clinton guaranteed loans for the Mexican government to help the country out of financial insolvency. He followed this decision with many speeches to help the American public understand the importance of stabilizing Mexico's economy. Individual examples like these make it difficult to persuasively identify the direct effects of public opinion on the presidency. So while presidents may have lost only 2 terms to work, members of Congress can serve as long as the public returns them to office. We might think that for this reason, public opinion is important to representatives and senators, and their behavior, such as their votes on domestic programs or funding, will change to match the expectation of the public. In a more liberal time, the public may expect to see more social programs, and in a non-liberal time, the public mood may favor austerity or decreased government spending on programs. Failure to recognize shifts in public opinion lead to politicians losing in the next election. Please proceed to the next part of the presentation to understand more about how Congress and the Supreme Court are affected by public opinion.